Thou art my God, my goddess, my master and my mistress, my consort, my playmate, my comrade and companion. All these and more art thou. Sweet ecstasy of life I find in thee. With thee I am, without thee I am nothing. Now that thou hast come to me, I feel secure. All cares are gone, my faith and courage have blossomed like twin flowers. My heart is like a green garden, fragrant after a shower of dewdrops at dawn. Love, stay with me, stay on, oh stay on. Without thee, life is a desolation, a desolation, a desolation. Yet will I not hold thee, nor urge thee in thy staying. Thou art delicate, most tender. I will not press, but only will I invoke, worship and pray at thy shrine. Love, thou art my God, my goddess, my master and my mistress, my consort, my playmate, my comrade and companion. All these and more art thou. All these and more art thou. unfathomed mystery, sacred current of life, vibrant, resplendent flame that burneth eternally. Hail to thee, thou Holy Spirit. Hail to thee, giver of your sight, consuming all our imperfections, healing all our wounds, and bestowing peace on our journey. To thee I turn my face, on thee I fix my gaze, now and let it be, through eternity. Hail to thee, thou Holy Spirit. Hail to thee, giver of your sight. Let me lie in thy protecting arms, sleep alone of thy heart. In waking thee, wake in thy glorious face. To thee I turn my face, on thee I fix my gaze, now and let it be, through eternity. Hail to thee, thou Holy Spirit. Hail to thee, giver of your sight. Hail to thee, thou Holy Spirit. Hail to thee, giver of your sight. Hail to thee, thou Holy Spirit. Hail to thee, giver of your sight.
Om Sachidananda Sharanam Om Shri Guru Kripahi Kevalam Om Shri Guru Sharanagata Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It's so nice to see you and so nice to welcome you here. So glad that you're here with us today. And good morning to everyone who's watching live and everyone who will be watching, and for those in the living room. Janapriya Joan North, who has been a member of our community for a long time, has written, this is her latest book, which just came out in June. And it's called Wisdom from Spiritual Teachers, and it has quotations, but also her beautiful art that is appropriate for each page. And it comes from spiritual teachers of many traditions, but I was very taken with a couple of statements from Kabir, who was a mystic, a Sufi mystic from around the period of the Middle Ages. And he said, I had to seek the physician with a capital P, because of the pain this world caused me. I could not believe what happened when I got there. I found my teacher. Before I left, he said, "Up for a little homework yet?" That sounds familiar to those of you who've been attending my classes and talks. How's the homework coming along, by the way? So Kobir said, "Okay." I replied, "Well then, try thanking all the people who have caused you pain. They helped you to come to me." Kobir. And then I love this one. "I felt in need of a great pilgrimage. So I sat still for 3 days, and God came to me." And Hafiz said, also a mystic of the Middle Ages, a Sufi mystic of the Middle Ages, "I wish I could show you, when you're lonely or in darkness, the astonishing light of your own inner being." These lead perfectly to our homework. You ready for our homework? All right. Confucius said, "We should worship as though the deity were present. If my mind is not engaged in my worship, it is as though I worship not." How many of us have done prayers or participated in a religious ritual of some sort, but our minds were far, far away and weren't at all engaged in the words we were saying or the actions we were performing? We have read and we have heard so many profound spiritual truths and principles, not only in sacred scriptures, but also in other readings. But they don't seem to, their significance doesn't seem to penetrate deeply because we haven't related them to our daily lives. They don't penetrate our consciousness because in just reading them or hearing them, we haven't really touched them. So our homework is, because most of us already know enough, most of us already have many spiritual principles that we've read and heard and ascribe to, subscribe to, profess. But the point of all of our spiritual practice is to commit our lives to the of those principles, to manifesting those spiritual principles in our day-to-day lives, in all circumstances, to have them so much in the upper levels of our consciousness that they're right there to hand, so that when something comes up in our lives, we apply that principle. And in applying that principle, then we are scientifically proving its efficacy, whether it works or not. So most of the principles that we've learned in our various faith traditions have stood the test of time. The illumined teachers in our paths have lived by them. And so our work is not to learn more spiritual principles, it is to apply our spiritual principles to all of the circumstances, the events, the things that arise in our daily life. And when we do that, then these principles become a power in our soul. They become alive, they become living, they become a force that not only transforms our own life and consciousness, but also our daily life and also the lives whom we touch through our daily lives. It is then that we really begin to feel the reality of loving God, loving human beings, loving humanity, loving individual human beings. Sometimes it's easier to love humanity than it is to love certain people. The absence of hatred in our consciousness. And the truth, proving it for ourselves, of the invincibility, the power, the strength of loving kindness in our lives. We spend a lot of time and money and energy and imagination on our physical well-being and on the material advantages and comforts. Don't you think our inner well-being deserves equal time, or at least more time and more priority than what we ordinarily give it in our busy lives? We're living in a significant period. And all kinds of things are happening in the world. All kinds of things are happening around us. I wrote to one of my dear friends who's also a monastic, who said, the Divine Mother is dancing with cleats on. This is a time of all times when we need to fortify ourselves with a deep inner life, with a reliable connection of our own with the divine. We are the ones that have to make sure that this relationship is given quality time and attention so that we have strength, so that we have courage, so that we have faith, so that we have inspiration, so that we have spiritual companionship, so that we don't have to sink to that which is ignoble or untrue or unworthy of those principles that we have held in our spiritual consciousness as invaluable. We do need to spend more time on our inner life and inner connection. It needs to become so much a part of our being that it is natural. That it isn't like we have our spiritual practice on one side and our daily life on the other side. It's like so many of us say, well, I'm just so busy, I can't spare another moment for anything more. But who can afford to omit this? Because this is what gives grounding and meaning and significance and protection and fuel and sustenance for the skillful living of our daily lives. And for the determination to pay attention to the kinds of thoughts that we entertain in our minds that have a physical effect on our bodies. Fear and anger, hatred and hostility and violence, even unexpressed violence, doesn't take a physical form. we pay a big price for those emotions. They're not skillful. They're not constructive. And so we need all the help that we can get, all the fortifying from within that we can get. And when everybody else is feeling wobbly, this is the time for us to be an unwobbler, a person that is strong and enduring. But we can't depend upon our own puny strength because that flags. We can exhaust our own strength. And that's why we need to call upon a strength that is infinite. Mataji said so often that the fruits of spiritual life, yes, sometimes euphoria, sometimes a feeling of overwhelming well-being, of blessedness and sacredness and holiness and awe and reverence. And that's wonderful. But also wonderful is that the fruits of spiritual life, she said, are strength and endurance and steadfastness and being able to have trust. As St. Julian of Norwich said, and all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. Because ultimately they will. Ultimately, light always conquers darkness. That is the spiritual law. And love always conquers hatred. That is the spiritual law. And knowledge, meaning spiritual knowing, that consciousness, that absolute consciousness that there is something, a higher power greater than ourselves, that is knowing. That is well beyond knowledge of things, knowledge of subjects, book learning. When we have that knowledge, no one can take it away from us. So that kind of knowing always conquers ignorance. So giving more attention to our inner life, nourishing ourselves. You know, I pray every morning, may all beings be happy. May all beings be free from affliction. May all beings see glorious days. May no one suffer or be sad. Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramoya, sarve bhadurani pasyantu makos chittuka bhagabhavet. It's an old Sanskrit prayer from the Vedas. But it's so good to include in our prayers, may I be happy. May I be free from affliction. May I be free from suffering. May I be at ease and at comfort within myself. May I see glorious days. We know that suffering will come to us. It's part of human life. But we also know that this knowing of the divine, the divine reality, the ultimate reality, is our fortification and our armor. So we can afford to say, you know, when things seem overwhelming, I can't do it myself. I need help. We can afford to say, I just don't know what's right. I need guidance. I just feel kind of creaky inside. I'm definitely wobbling. Help me. And the help never fails to come. Prayers are always answered, as Mataji says in this little book of wisdom that she shared with John Priya one time or another. The prayers are always answered, not in our time, but they were unfulfilled. So, giving more time to our nourishing including what nourishes us spiritually, should be part and parcel of every single day. But what ultimately happens as the divine becomes real to us is that the divine becomes part and parcel of every single part of the day. I was thinking the other day when I was sorting the laundry, one of my favorite things, or making the bed clean, changing the sheets and folding them and putting them away. It seems like, the days between laundry days become shorter and shorter. It seems like I just did it yesterday. And always, no matter what huge things are going on in life, there's always laundry to be done. And so I said to myself, I really want to get to my own work, which is ashrama work, okay? But I have this laundry to do, and I have this laundry to fold and put away. And I said, okay, I'm serving you. This is as important to you as the book I'm trying to finish about Sister Devamata, which is what I've been trying to get to for a month and a half, with every unimportant thing to me interfering. But the divine sees things very differently, because my doing of the laundry with my full attention, as if it were worthy of respect, and that it was a worthy occupation, and that it's a sacred occupation because I'm doing it I'm thinking of the divine, that I'm serving the divine through folding this laundry. I realize it has cosmic effect, at least to me. But it means that time, it isn't like I'm taking time out from my real sacred obligations to do these things that are routine housekeeping type of things. So the secret in spiritual life is that nothing we do is unimportant, and nothing we do is not sacred, and nothing we do needs to be separated from the divine. So our spiritual practice is all of this. Picking up all the waste baskets to take the trash out on Tuesdays. Ironing my clothes and chutter on Wednesday for Sunday morning. And then when I finally get back to Sister Devamata again, I can go, phew, I'm serving you through doing this too. So you see, our spiritual life isn't something separate. It shouldn't be something separate. It should be organically part of the whole. And that's the whole secret if you read Swami Vivekananda's wonderful book called Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga means, how do we take our daily life and spiritualize it and realize that it is spiritual. It's not something we are imposing upon it. And therefore our whole life becomes one complete tapestry in a way, one offering. And whether we want to think of God and say, I offer the folding of this laundry to you, or you just know that the divine is with you as you're doing it, or you're doing it as service to the divine, or you're folding the divine's laundry. There are just any number of ways that you can use your imagination to manifest what is the truth. The truth is that we're not separated from the divine in any way. We're never separated from the divine in any way except in our own consciousness, and then we can be far, far away from the divine until we remember it again, or something inspires us to try again. So really, spiritual life is simple. It doesn't require any ceremony. It doesn't require any rules of duty or obligation. Spiritual life should be fun and adventuresome. An adventure, certainly an adventure in learning more about ourselves. Because as we develop in our spiritual journey and as we meditate simply means that we put aside our own hamster wheel of thoughts and the stories we tell about ourselves and the stories we tell about other things which may or may not have any basis in reality at all. We put our own stamp and our own interpretation on everything. So we really live in a bubble. I heard a man on NPR the other day on Terry Gross's Fresh Air, and he has written a book about the sensory lives of other beings beside human beings. How, if various kinds of animals and fish and birds were right here in the temple with us, that through our very limited range of sensory perception, ours is very limited. We only hear within a certain spectrum. We only see within a certain spectrum of light. We only smell in a very limited spectrum, and so on. And outside of this spectrum, he said, is a vast reality of which we're completely unaware. So we go around making our pronouncements out, well, this is the truth about it. We're not crazy. We just don't know. We're just unaware. Okay. So then he was explaining how, of all living beings, we're one of the only groups that does not see ultraviolet light. So there are vast colors and shapes and patterns that every other little being around us sees, but we don't. We're not even aware of it. When you take those animals that can, use sonar to locate. For example, bats can only really perceive their mosquito meals a few yards ahead of them. But other animals that use sonar, like dolphins and whales, can